The poster is all around the building, and we keep seeing your face here and there.
Hello everyone, I'm Rachel and I'm so pleased to be with all of you today again in the Mulan Forum. Mulan Forum is a series of fireside chats that we are having with prominent female and male leaders, both in and outside HP. We talk to them about career, about life experience, about leadership, among others, so that our Mulan candidates can get inspired and empowered, thus get to lead. Today, we are thrilled and grateful to have another incredible female leader with us, and Jordan will tell more about her in the introduction. After that, we will listen to her story and learnings. Then I will interview and ask her a few questions. Afterwards, it will be your turn for Q&A, and in the end, Papia will also give us some key takeaways. And with that, Jordan, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rachel, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And I think I don't even need to introduce you. You must know who is Papia, right? And I think being our HR business partner, and she's doing a fantastic job. And even before the ODNS, we work quite closely when we are all a part of the APJCS. And in fact, she's the one behind the workforce of future. And then she's the big promoter of our product, Talent Bridge. And also after the ODNS, we all know what happened. The pandemic is really changing the way how we work, the way how we live. And she's also working closely with me and support me a lot in the work from home initiative. I can tell without the hard work being done by her, and then we cannot reach where we are. And even right now, company level already launched that hybrid working model, but we are absolutely one step ahead, right? And all of this, maybe you don't know, but I can tell, for the same material, maybe she has to go and explain more than 10 times to different stakeholders to get everyone's blessing. So you can just imagine how hard it could be. So I think it's our privilege to have a HR business partner like her. So I don't want to waste the time, and I want to give the floor to you, Papia. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And it's my absolute privilege to support this team. And I think, in this process of being engaging with you and the Dalian team, my learnings have been great. This is such a high empowering and a high performing team, right? That does outcomes without even thinking or before anybody would have even experimented. So making bold moves, driving innovation, driving customer impact is the DNA of this team. And therefore, my job is easier to be part of an HR business partner for this team. So team, what I am going to present today is a brief summary of my career experience, some of the learnings that I have had, right, that I had to check myself that have been barriers to my career progress. And I'm going to share very honestly and candidly about my situations on that. And then lastly, I'll talk about, art of negotiation, about an important skill that I've learned over the years being an HR business partner that has helped me to influence and impact, business outcomes. And I want to share that experience with you. And then we'll follow up with the questions that actually Rachel talked about. So let me quickly share the slide that I had. Okay. So this in summary is my career experience. And you would see that one thing that key to note as I have moved in my career quite a bit, and I have done different roles in different organizations to engage and end up having richness of experience. So I started my career, as you see, that in economics background. That's something that really excited me. And something that I really enjoyed doing statistical modeling, driving power projects that in my country that required a lot of statisticians. So did some work around that as part of an intern, and then ended up saying that I really enjoy teaching. Something that I'm passionate about, to be able to do that really gave me happiness. And that's the reason the first thing that I said and I'll do was, get into, teaching in a school. And it was just not economics, it was something more than maths and science that I was teaching. Um, then as I was interacting, sometimes my ecosystem gave me vibes, right, about things that I could do, right? And they said that, your ability to connect dots, ability to solution for people, a management degree would help you to harness your skill, right, better. You've learned it, but you've not learned the technique of it. And that's what got me to get into an MBA school, to harness my skill, get more proficient with it, gain more confidence around it, to be able to, and that got me to, and then when I started thinking what I will do an MBA on, I realized, okay, given that I like to solution to people, automatically the option of doing something in human resources was an obvious choice that I made. And from the campus, the first job that I took in was actually in recruitment, right, where I was doing exec level recruitment for the for higher levels in VP and above levels in many organizations through the consultant that I was recruited for. That gave me a really sneak preview of what, as a leadership behavior, right, that people look forward to when they actually want to be successful in an organization. So I was lucky that my first assignment was in such a senior recruitment role. So I was just a kid on the block, and I was actually vetting candidates who were like had 25, 30 years of experience, and they would ask me questions about why they should be interested in that company, what could be their value add, and I had to do my homework to be able to represent the company, to be able to attract that talent for that particular position. And when I spoke to them, I really figured out the importance of influence and impact that you make in these conversations as part of the journey. As I was doing this for around 3 years, it gave me richness of experience, gained me confidence. It's quite strange that in my career that it has happened that my own boss ended up coming to me and saying that I've outranked myself in the job, right? Saying that whatever you had to learn, you've actually finished learning and you need to do something more and beyond, right? Because you're in such a niche market, you need to think beyond the box and be more comfortable. And that's where made the bold move, moved out of the city that I was actually operating out of. This is one of the many cities in India that I moved to, and ended up joining a completely different organization, which is a banking product firm, where you actually do recruitment in scale, right, on a huge scale, which I had never done before. So the first reaction for myself was, I've never done it before. I don't know whether I will fit the profile. And when I went for the interview, the first thing the person asked me, right, is my ability to unlearn, right? And if I can unlearn, then I can learn this job, right? Because exactly the skills that you use in exec leadership is the opposite skills you need to be able to do large scale recruitments, right? So I was fascinated because my manager, who potentially I ended up reporting to, only asked me questions to unnerve me in the interview, to be able to know whether I know how to unlearn. And that's the only skill that she tested me before she gave me the job, right? Which was a very interesting learning for me as an individual, right? That when you take up new opportunities, things that are ambiguous, the first thing that people look out to, that you learn new things, but to learn new things, you also have to learn how to unlearn and change your mindset, right? Whether I was willing to do that. Again, spent time in doing recruitments. And after I finished doing recruitments, then came the opportunity. Somebody said that, you solution for people, you solution for organizations, then why don't you do an HR business partner role? And I think you would be able to do it. again, a very different inflection point that came in my career, where I had the opportunity to join Accenture. Many of my batch colleagues from the MBA Institute, they reached out to me by saying that you would be, you will excel in this organization. This organization shows ability to agility that you'd really like doing. It would be. Again, I had no experience in managing HR relations or HR employee experience because I was doing only recruitment. But again, an opportunity came in which I grabbed and said, okay, let me see whether I would be successful in doing something that I've never done before. And that got me to start my career in a outsourcing part of the business for Accenture, which was end-to-end experience that you could get in driving, talent management, retention, and employee engagement, and workforce strategy for that particular function. All that experience that I had till now in my career was only managing local talent. I had never managed global teams. And that's where when one of my managers got an opportunity to be in HP, just because I've used my ability to network and continue to stay connected with them, I just got an opportunity that I got to know in HP, where you end up being the HR business partner for a global team based in India, right? So where you could manage teams in Americas, in EMEA, along with the APJ team that you could. And that's where I said, again, I had to again move for this opportunity, get there to be able to get that exposure. And I felt it could be good because I've already done it in local teams. It's just time for me to prove that whether I could use the same experience when I manage global teams. Then came the most difficult time, right, which is the separation time when HPE and HPQ separation happened in that year. And that's where, when the separation happened, I ended up being in HPE. And the team that I supported would be the global IT services, which was the APJ HR business partner role. By this time, I had done all possible global roles. And to be honest with you, I was getting like, oh my God, I'm not learning much. And that's where the complete out of box idea came to me, that I want to actually experiment whether I am successful in an HR role in a startup company. And that's where I ended up jumping out and said, okay, let me see whether I can end up being in an India startup company where you actually have to do end-to-end everything. It's just not one specialization, but you actually get experience in end-to-end, from compensation to talent management, HR management. And this is a startup, right? So there is no boundaries. You are the master of all trade, right? So I said, okay, let me get out of my comfort zone and learn how to do that. And ended up moving on to a company called Sutherland Global Services, which basically used to do outsourcing services for most of the Dubai-based banking companies, right? So I spent around 6 months in Dubai, doing a transition for one of the banks that was outsourcing work to the company. It was immense learning experience on how you can be an HR consultant actually and influence an outsourcing business before you actually do transition. So it gave me a huge amount of business acumen, ability to negotiate and influence being the key when you drive account management in a consultant role. Did that for 9 months. The only reason that I moved early out and joined back in HP was the value system that organization had versus my value system. They were very, very different. And I just soon realized that, yes, the money was great. I was a senior director. I had all the designation, all the money in the world, but I was just not happy, right? Because it's just the every day you need to be passionate about what you're doing. And if the value and ecosystem of your own personal values don't align with the organization, you will reach somewhere, but you're not giving your 100% to the job, right? And that's where, again, my networking skills got me back to HP India, where I said, okay, I will end up being in a different business for print and finance. And this time, again, a very new, different business that I got an opportunity to lead kind of stuff. And then came the opportunity. People said that you've done roles, global roles in India. You've done, end-to-end, exposure in HR relations, in country HR, in HR business partner, but you've never proven yourself, right? When I used to have my development plan discussions, the question that I was asked was, will you be successful if you now end up, being culturally, having the cultural quotient that you need to be successful in a different global site? And that's where I was challenged by saying, do you want to take a role which is out of your country, completely a new setup, and move to Singapore and take customer support, right? Which is something that you've never done before. It is very close to the customers. The amount of experience that you need to exhibit is very, very different. Do you want to grab that opportunity to just add end-to-end experience? This was a difficult call for me, right? Because this is the time in the career that after all the hard work that I'd put in all my years, I had just bought a house in India, and I was just settling down, and I was feeling so happy. Oh my God, now I've got my first house. I'm going to enjoy it with my, my family. And then exactly this opportunity came at the same time, right? It was just in sequence, right? And to top of it, I said, okay, after failing to drive for 5 times, I finally cleared my test. So I even bought a car, right? Thinking, okay, now I'm just settling down, I'm going to continue to be in the role. And that's when this opportunity came. So it was a tough choice to make, right? Like saying that comfort, that you have everything, you are very comfortable in what you're doing, versus somebody is offering you something that you've never done before, and to relocation to a different country where you have to start from scratch and build your ecosystem again. What would you take? I think it's my inherent nature of risk taking and risk appetite that helped me to take the decision. And I said, yes, these are milestones in the career that you will have. There would be, situations where you have to make some tough choices. But I can't tell you how much rewarding it has been that I took that tough choice at that point in time. And my mentors really helped me to arrive at the decision, which got me to an APJ role, as Jordan said, and then moving into a global HRBP role, continuing to be, operating in customer support. So in a nutshell, team, right? Something, if you look in your career, that's something that, has really helped me is I have really tested myself to move out of comfort zone in any job that I've taken. The second thing that I have done is to ensure that I go where the opportunity is, because you never can time yourself, or you can't say that I want the opportunity where I am, right? So I moved wherever the opportunity was. And third is, in the entire process, I kept my networking framework very strong, so I could figure out that any of the decisions or any moves or career changes that I was making to build my HR career, I could validate my ideas with them to be successful. So moving on to the the next slide. I spoke about my career, but these are some aspects that I have experienced, just like any one of you would have experienced in some form and fashion, right? Because as you move on your career, you have 22 years of career, but these were the dimensions, if I look back on things that I had to overcome to be successful in my career. The first thing is about balancing work and life. I very early on, right, I realized that there is no something called as work-life balance in my definition, right? There is something called as work-life integration, right? So, and that's what I had to accept in my mind, and the voice in my head, to be able to say that's the choice I have made in my career. All the roles that I've taken, I have managed large scale of employees across regions. So I do not have a fixed time to do my job. My job is for 24/7. There would be times that I would have to make that, balance. I have to build an ecosystem by which you can, be far more predictive on situations that can go wrong. But there is no typical as work-life balance. And I really spent a lot of time with my family to share the kind of job I do, right? And how much of passion and how much of I enjoy doing it. And they really understood that, right? So I really have adopted work-life integration rather than work-life balance. And once I made that mindset change in my head, I felt less guilty, right? But when I spend time with my family, I spend 100% of that time, right? So I made a point that on Friday nights is my dinner time with my family, and I'm not eating on my desk, and I do it dedicatedly. If there is a vacation time that I've taken, until unless it's really important, I would be spending that time. So they know that when I give them time, I am actually dedicated and not getting deviated with it. But still, area of improvement for me to be able to a little more paranoid on response, because I like to be agile on responding to things. So that's an area I'm still working on. But I really made that mindset change that for me, work life balance is actually work life integration, and I had to build an ecosystem that would help me to do my job. The second thing is about perfectionism versus excellence, right? Very early on, right, I had mentors who really taught me, right, what's the difference between perfectionism and excellence in anything you do. Perfectionism is actually you spend a lot of time and energy on getting every detail right, because you just want nothing to go wrong. You're just afraid, and you will beat yourself hard if you have made any mistake, and that's perfectionism, right? And if you're a structured person and if you want to achieve things, perfectionism comes naturally to individuals, right? But actually, very soon you realize what the world is demanding is not perfectionism. It's in your head, right? That you want perfectionism in everything you do. What the world is demanding of you is excellence, right? And that you are achieving the goals or the outcomes that you're required. So if you just change your mindset on not being a perfectionist, but to end up being more beyond perfectionism. It is about driving the business outcomes that you're driving. You will take the pressure off, right? Otherwise you're stressed on dealing with perfectionism rather than the goal or the outcome that you want to achieve, right? So that difference between perfectionism and excellence in anything you do was very important for me to see that how I take stress out of my system, so that I'm not being so hard on myself all the time, anytime that I make a mistake. My supervisors are not expecting me to be perfectly right all the time. It is more about accepting the mistake and not making the same mistake. You can make new mistakes, but not the same mistake. The third one was, in my career, I had to overcome the crisis of confidence, because of the fact is, and this lack of confidence or crisis of confidence comes also from the fact of being a perfectionist, right? You want to be perfectionist, and therefore you just don't put your hand up, right? Because you said, okay, I'm not completely ready, right? So the different roles that I have taken, I was not 100% ready for the roles, right? But I said, I don't know, but I have my learning agility. I have my ability to unlearn and learn new things. And that's what is more important, rather than knowing that whether I know every dimension of the job that I was applying, right? And I was very transparent with individuals by saying that I only know 60% of it, right? And I do not know the remaining 100% of the job. And I was very transparent about it. And if I was transparent about that, then the individual saw me in that right. And so therefore, the crisis that I have to be confident and I have to know everything that I take up on a job, that stress got off, right? But I constantly checked myself that whether I'm not putting my hand up because of crisis of confidence or because I'm too complacent to make mistakes and afraid to make those mistakes because I want that people perceive me that I can do everything right. So that's an area that I had to work in to be successful in my career. I talked a lot during my career journey on networking and sponsorship, right? I initially in my career, I said, I do a good job. My work speaks for myself, and therefore my supervisor will do the remaining, right? And therefore I only have to work hard and know the aspects of my job, and that's all I need to do. But then, as I grew in my career, I really understand the importance of networking and sponsorship, because they are your ecosystem that will give you the right advice, will help you to make those moves, sometimes will give you advice that you would not notice in your immediate peer system. So I really ensured that out of context, it's just not because I want to be in context of a solution, I end up having those connections. Then the one is high need of acceptance. This is an area that I had to completely watch myself, right? That sometimes the decisions that I'm making are the right decisions, and not the decisions that I'm making because it is important that I get accepted in the ecosystem that I'm appearing, right? It's not about making the most popular decision. It is about making the right decision. And sometimes when you make those right decisions with the current ecosystem that you have, it may not seem highly acceptable to few people, right? But you should be okay, right? That and not be have the fear that you will be getting judged, that you are not popular, right? That's not the criteria. The criteria is to ensure that you're making the right decisions of whatever are you doing at that point with the information that you have. So that was very important to watch out for, that in my HR role, I make the right decisions with the information that I have, rather than get influenced by the need of acceptance, right? Acceptance will come if I do good work, right? And that's the switch I had to make. Last but not the least is understanding landscape, right? So as I did different roles, I realized it's just not about knowing the functional skill of the job. It is very important to understand the landscape that you're operating and performing in the job, right? So it was just not my IQ to perform the role, but you need to have adequate cultural quotient, right, to be able to lead teams with different backgrounds. So I had to spend some time to build those relationships, understands those nuances of cultures, to be able to adapt my leadership style, right, to be able to influence and impact for those teams. So it became very, very important that you understand landscape that you're operating in, because that's a key influencer that helps you to be successful at all. So if you ask me, these are the 6 learnings that I had that technically I have seen barriers to career progress, but if you are conscious about them, if you understand that you're dealing with that situation, you would be able to cope with it, right? So I really wanted to share that these were the learnings that I had to overcome to be able to be successful in my career. Then the next piece that I really wanted to talk to is about the art of negotiation, right? This is an important skill, right, that I learned to be able to influence and impact, right? And on the right hand side, you would see that some of the learnings that I had that I keep in mind, right, in where I use the art of negotiation to influence and impact, which is very important in my role, given that I'm driving influence and impact, where I have to influence people who directly do not report to me. They do not understand the context or the world of business landscape that I belong to. So if I have to use the ability to influence and impact and use my negotiation skills to be able to get a win-win outcome. When I was researching, and first I thought, art of negotiation is just about how I'm having conversations. But then when I did my study, I went back and said, it's actually what I'm doing is actually Lewis Kehian's negotiation metrics model, right? And that's where I read through. And these are the 5 options that happen that can actually drive, ability to influence very carefully if you actually know which zone you are operating on when you're interacting with both parties, right? And for me, the most perfect one that I have used and had helped me to be successful is the win-win, combination, where it is about being fair and objective, where both the parties win, rather than thinking that I'm the only one who want to win, right? And it's about ensuring that we develop a much more collaborative approach to driving the outcome that we are driving. And also be very careful and be conscious of the fact that when you need to move away, right? Because in an art of negotiation, it's also important to know when to move away, right? And detach yourself to be able to be fair and objective, that you tried your best to collaborate, you tried to drive outcome win-win, but it didn't work out, and it's okay, didn't work out, right? But not to be so tied to the outcome that you don't know when to push away, right? So some of the learnings that I had, right, that has really helped me, and I picked up, that has helped me to be an effective, to be able to influence and impact business outcomes, is first that when any kind of scenarios like this, what I do is I spent adequate time to build connections, right? In any situations that you want to do a negotiation, or you're building, trying to build a business outcome together with a cross-functional team, it's very important that you understand each other's playground or context. So I spent enough time knowing them. I spent enough time in understanding from where they are coming on, their background, and that likely helps you to create that connection, right? Where they feel that you want to collaborate rather than, you're in a hurry to, drive the outcome, right? So we have to be patient enough to say first you to build that connection. And if you actually build that connection, you're just building at least a plane for relationship where the person is actually going to give you an opportunity to listen, right? So I spend adequate time in building that connections, and therefore my ability to connect with people, connect and build context has helped me to, start the first step. The second thing is um, anxiety, anger, and ego, right? All these three are inhibitors to negotiation, right? Specifically anxiety, right? It has a significant impact in when you're trying to drive influence and impact, right? Because there is enough research that shows that you ending up being getting a weak offer if the other person knows that you were any anxious and you have actually exited the negotiation much before, just because you're being anxious and the person has realized that you're anxious in that conversation, right? And I learned that actually watching a TV show called Shark Tank. I am sure there are many other TV shows like that that you would have in your region, where there are actually six investors who listen to different ideas of entrepreneurs, and they actually end up unnerving them, right? And use anxiousness as a technique to get a better deal. So they're actually not working on a win-win, negotiation for them. In that scenario, what they're thinking is compete, right? Where they win, they get the best deal on in sponsoring an idea, and at the lowest possible price, right? But if you want to be an effective negotiator, that's a very different scenario. But if you want to be an effective negotiator, you need to ensure that you have to not use anxiousness and anger, because that takes away the the stress of the system and the competitive spirit that the other person feels that that person has to get more from you, right? So you actually if you keep that out, then the last one is the most destructive of the all, that in any negotiation that can hurt you is ego, to be honest with you, right? That where you think, I want to win, right? And that's my ultimate goal, right? And therefore I don't, it doesn't matter to me whether the other person is winning or not, but it's my ego who's actually talking, and the way that I coin the conversation gets it off the table, right? So I have seen that if I can tap my energy where I am leaving, at times there are people in the will perceive you will in a very different manner, but you don't have to use anger, but use your more collaborative style to drive the outcome, and not be in a hurry, right? Some situations take time, right? Don't be in a hurry. Take the style. It will give you enough cues, right, for you to be patient in a conversation. Continue to be patient. If the other person sees that you're in anxious and hurry, will take that as a cue, and then try to push an outcome that you may not like. And last, you have to keep your ego outside the box, right? And then you will be able to understand it. Then the one that I said, needing for acceptance, right? And sometimes I've seen that people even fear the word negotiation, right? Because they think, if you use the word negotiation, it means, you are unprofessional, right? People will say that it's rude to negotiate, right? And it is perceived that you are greedy, right? If you use the word negotiate, right? But what is more important to understand is what you're trying to drive is a much more collaborative win-win situation for you, right? So so if you can take away the need for acceptance out of the ecosystem, you will actually not come across that you want the need for acceptance, right? And you are actually looking and focusing on the price, on the outcome that you're driving for the business, rather than the whether you are getting judged or not, right? So those are the feelings and mindsets that you need to keep in mind, that you do it. The other aspect is facts. It is very, very powerful in any kind of influence and impact that you have objective data. And if you have objective data, people will believe in your idea, right? They may not warm up to your idea initially, but people like fair, objective outcomes, right? So if you can give them inputs, data that support your idea, and use fact as an important tool to influence and impact, your art of negotiation gets better and better. Last but not the least is listening, right? And here, when I mean that, listening means really listening when you're actually in an ability to influence and impact. It's not about you talking, it's about what the other person is saying is more important for you to be able to influence and impact. And when I say really listening, some things that I do is I refrain from asking questions and interrupting that person before the person finishes, right? So that I don't unnerve the person, and the person feels that, I'm not really listening to the person. I stop formulating their responses, right? Because it might end up seeing rude, as if, they were not able to express their idea. And lastly, something that I do is I ensure that if I'm asking a question or a clarifying question, I've thought through, right? That, I wanted to have an input and I'm asking the question, right? So the person feels that, I'm just not, blabbering, or I'm having a conversation just for the sake of having conversations to, drive the win-win outcome. Last, if you've tried all the tricks, right, of negotiation that I talked about, right, sometimes it's important, as I rightly said, that to step away. You know that you've tried your best and things have not worked out. Lastly, a neutral intervention, having a third person to come and help with the influence and impact actually helps. And you should know, as you get practice negotiation skills, you will know that when you need to bring right, an SME or an external neutral person who could actually help you to drive that influence and impact. So team, that's something that I really wanted to share, that this is an important skill that I learned that has really helped me to drive influence and impact on my job. And this is the two books that has been good read for me, right? That has helped me to improve my technique of negotiation skills. So I have left it with Rachel that, I know that you have a library and you guys love reading. So I'm sure that, each of you, if you want to hone this skill, this would be a good read that would help you to, cultivate the journey. So that's all I had, Rachel, that I wanted to share as part of my learnings and my career journey, and an important skill that I harnessed over the year, which is the art of negotiation.
Well, thank you so much for the insightful sharing. You are such a great teacher. While I was listening, I've got many questions to ask you. But before that, I would like to ask the audience several questions to check whether they listened carefully or not.
Sure.
For the top 3 winners, we've prepared some books that you recommended. The Getting to Yes and also Negotiating Rationally, both
Awesome.
Chinese and versions. Okay, let's begin. First, let's go to kahoot.it. You can go to kahoot.it. Would you please show us the game screen? Okay, and then the game pin is 6361486. I see Lin, Yuan Yuan are joining. You need to go to kahoot.it. Wow. More and more are joining us today. Okay, Tracy, Guijing, Elsa, Claire. Come on. Yinan, Zhang Yu. Okay, let's get started. The first 4 are true or false questions. And the last one is a word cloud that you can input some keywords from Papier's sharing. The first one, Papier was a teacher before. True or false? You have 20 seconds now. 16, 15. We've got 27 answers, more than 30 now. Come on. Okay. We've got 39. Yeah, most of you are right. Next one, please. Okay, show the Zhao Caimao is the number one now. You are the quickest. The second one. Papier's superpower to drive impact in negotiation is win-win approach. True or false? We've got more answers for this question. 44 answers. All of you are right. You did listen carefully. Next one, please. Wow. Zhao Caimao again. Next one. I think it's Xie Xin, right? Papier never came to Dalian before. True or false? You know, I gave you hints in the picture. 44, 45. This is a pretty easy question. Yeah. 37 are right. This is the fourth question. Papier did come to Dalian before, and I will show you some proof later. Okay, Go is the number one now. Let's go to the next question. True or false? CES Summer School 2021 will offer interactive webinars on data and digital, customer session, and personal effectiveness. True or false? This question is actually out of scope. Papier didn't share this with us, but you can check your emails and got the updates. Let's see who will be the right. 43, 44. Wow. 40 are right. Okay. What do you learn from Papier's sharing? You can type your answers, input your keywords from Papier's learning. I'll give you 1 minute. We've got 12, 13, 14, 15. 34 minutes, 34 seconds, 31 seconds, 30. Come on, type your answers. Okay, here comes the word cloud. The word cloud is coming. 28, 29. 7 seconds, 5 seconds, 30. We got 32, 33. Okay, time's up. Let's see the word clouds. Excellent networking. Yeah, that's very important from Papier's learning. Win-win. That's wonderful. Excellent. Thank you all for your active participation. And let's see who are the winners.
Awesome.
Number 3, Emily. Number 2, Zhao Caimao. Number 1, let's see who he is. Gao.
Oh, Gao.
Congratulations to the winners.
Sure, I'm Gao Yang. Gao Yang here. Gao is me.
Congratulations. Yeah,
actually,
you can
I'm a
choose
big-
from the books.
How sure are you?
Yes, I'm a big fan of Papier, so I'm very enjoying this session.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
And admire for you, Papier.
Thank
That's
you.
Gao
Thank you.
A handsome guy.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, congratulations to the winners. And Gao Yang, you can come to me for the books. And for those who didn't get the books, don't worry. We will have them in our library. You can borrow anytime. Okay. And please show the next picture, please. Yeah, here is the proof that Papier came to Dalian before. Papier, you know, I could still remember when I was hosting on the stage your encouraging smile. And you are sparing no efforts, encouraging all of us all the time. In a letter to our daughters in the International Women's Week, you said, never compare yourself to others. Remember, you are unique and have your own gifts to offer the world. Listen to what you say about yourself because that matters the most. And always be kind to yourself. You are your own best friend. I like it very much. Here comes my first question. Why do you want to say this to us? Are you your own best friend all the time? Did you ever have
Yes.
conflicts with yourself? And how did you manage it?
That's a great question. And I think I thought a lot before writing this, and I realized that over my years of career, I realized that it's not about chasing. If you start chasing other people's success, you forget about what you want, right? And very soon you will realize that you were chasing something that you don't want for your career, right? Because you're chasing other people's dreams, right? So you are a benchmark for yourself, right? And that's something I was lucky, to be honest with you, Rachel. I had a great mentor at very early on my career. Who helped me to transition that journey, right? And say that it's not about peer comparison, right? Your peer is getting into a next level opportunity, or it is about that expanded role and you are not getting it on time. It's not that. Stay focused on your purpose, right? And the question I had to, and the person helped me to ask is, what I'm doing today, what is that I'm bringing in my job, and what is the purpose that I want to drive in my own career, right? If I could answer those questions, I realized that actually I'm benchmarking myself and trying to outdo that, right? And I truly do that every month, as part of my quiet time that I spend with myself, right? I write my own diary about things that I've learned, things that I could do differently, and use that as a benchmark to be able to better myself. And that has really helped me to stay focused, because it helped me to define my purpose in life, right? My purpose is that I love to solution for businesses, and I love to ensure that I solve for people. And that's the outcome I'm looking for, right? And whichever role gives me that opportunity, I take up that role, right? And rather than benchmarking myself on what could be significant milestones that others think that I need to achieve. So that really took the stress out of the ecosystem. It helped me to enjoy what I am doing and helped me to be successful. I would say it's not that I don't face that conflict. Like, it's very human, right? To feel that conflict in your head, that you feel, oh my God, that and that's where I use my mentors hugely to get those questions validated, right? Because they help me to then, at times when I'm confused and the conflict is high and that noise in your head is saying, no, you need to deviate on your path. That's when you should use your ecosystem of mentors, informal coaches, and people that you trust, right? Who will give you the right advice in an objective manner to sometimes validate when you are in a situation of conflict, when you think, you're not thinking rationally. And that got me to be better in my decision making capability and better at truly believing in what you said, right? That I'm chasing my own dream, and therefore I feel passionate in everything I do every day, and I feel the same level of energy in my work because I made that transition.
Yes, ask ourselves powerful questions, find our passion, the inner drive, and take advantage of the networking. Excellent. And you talk a lot about mentor, networking, and sponsorship. It seems there are always people who would like to help you at your critical moments. We admire it very much. I know a lot of people think about who should be my mentors. How should I pick one? When is that important in my career? Maybe you can talk a little about mentorship and how to think about that.
That's a great question, Rachel. I would say I didn't know the power of networking and the power of mentorship in my career. As I was sharing, right, I was like too much into achieving the milestones in the job, right? And I said, if I'm doing the hard work, right, then I'm achieving what I'm achieving in my job. My performance ratings are going up. I get my ecosystem around it, and therefore that's all I need to do. But very soon I realized, right, that that's helping me to accelerate my career up to a certain level, right? But it was not helping me to accelerate my career beyond a certain level, right? Because it's not about only your manager talking that how good you are. The ecosystem that, or the landscape that I talked about in my career journey, also need to believe in you, right? And there should be somebody else who should also talk about, yes, these are the value that, Papia bring in the table. So, so I first was, I had to overcome my fear of crisis of confidence. First, I had to ask myself, I don't know this person. How can I even go and ask this person, can I spend 15 minutes? So that's where I said, okay, let me test and ask. And whether it was Accenture, it was Oracle, or it was in HP, whenever I have, reached out to them and say, I just need 15 minutes. I heard you in a forum, your advice connected with me, and I just need 15 minutes to understand it and build it in my no context. I never got a no for the answer. So sometimes my mentorship is not like a formal relationship. I have personally made the effort to reach out to them to get their career advices, right? So I look out whenever I interact with people, I look out for that ecosystem. And that has really helped me to get the right advice, to validate my advice and be able to manage the noise in my head that keeps saying, okay, I don't think I can do it, but then the ecosystem tells you, go for it, right? And therefore, it has been a very powerful tool for me to be agile in decision making and be able to take those leaps in my career where I had 60% ambiguity. I didn't know what I'm doing, but my mentors helped me by saying, if you do it, these are the two things that you will gain. And do you have the risk appetite to even, take that journey? So they helped me in articulating my thoughts rather than, noises on my head. So that's where I've used that ecosystem very powerfully. And I would recommend it, each of you, to do it. Sometimes it's your peers who could be a great informal mentor, right? Because they understand what you're going through and can give you great advice, right? So look, watch out for it. Be collaborative. Don't be in the fear of whether the other person is judging you, or be the fear that the person will say no. It's okay if you reached out to the person didn't respond. That doesn't mean the person doesn't want to, give you mentoring advice. The person could be busy. It could be another person that you would reach out. So don't get disappointed initially if you see a setback, right? So I kept persistent on it, and it has worked out for me.
Yes, just be brave, and there's nothing to lose.
Correct.
Right, Papia. And Papia, I have many questions, and I can ask you on and on. But as time is limited, I think I will ask the audience what questions do they have now. So, Mulan candidates, are you ready? Who will be the first to ask the first question? Just ask yourself.
Hello, Papia. And Rachel, this is Yan Yan.
Hi, Yan Yan.
Thanks for you give you a good sharing today. And here are two questions from my side. And the first question is, I can see you have worked across different countries or regions in HP. What is the difference you see between Chinese female leader and the female leaders in other countries? This is my first question. And the second question is, what expectation or suggestions you do you have for Chinese female leader? Thank you.
Great. Thank you. These are great questions. I would say I'll respond to it about more from an Asian leadership, right? And I think it's a common flavor that I see in Asian markets, right? And not just in China. So I would say that I've managed many teams across cultures, right? So I would say very typical of an Asian leadership style is their humbleness, right? We by just the way that our ecosystem has been grown. Like I remember, right, my early school years, right? My dad would always say, right, that do not tom about things. It's normal for you to do what you're doing. Getting good scores is the nature of your job, and therefore you have to be humble about everything you've achieved in life. So by default, you're conditioned to be humble, right? So as a Asian leader, we show humbleness by default. Then our ability to drive business outcomes come naturally to us, right? We don't think of constraints. There could be constraints, but we don't make enough amount of amount on what constraints we have, right? But we think about how to solution it and drive that outcome. So we are very, very ambition-led in driving business outcomes. Third thing we are extremely good at is that we are very trustworthy. If you have, and sense of accountability, right? Asian leaderships are very much highly accountable. If there is like a conversation I have with Jordan, and Jordan knows with the years that he's worked with me, there is a certain level of accountability we both share. It's given in an Asian leadership, right? That there's sense of accountability. What I see as I have managed cultures so much, I figured out there are 3 more things that you need to do to be able to have that cultural quotient on how to relate to the other cultures, right? One thing is about we don't spend enough time building our own leadership brand. Right, and I mean, when I say leadership brand, doesn't mean tom-tomming, but being able to express this is my leadership style. We are so humble. We generally don't upfront talk about our leadership style or create our brand, which in any other cultures they do it naturally, and therefore people can relate to it. So you have to make an effort to create your authentic leadership brand. The second is we are not good with, we still have scope on better storytelling. We do all the work, and then because of the thought of humbleness, we don't feel, oh, we need to share the story, what led us to, right? We don't want to share our difficulties that have led to the outcome, right? So, but if you are not sharing that, people are not learning from you. And then they assume that it was easy for you to do. Right. So we have to get better. Right. And I'm still learning how to have better storytelling capability, because as Asian leaders, we don't do enough of storytelling about what we are doing and sharing our best practices. Right. Because we think, we are too much tom-tomming our work, but we are actually not. It's a good practice that other cultures do it so seamlessly about it. Third important fact is the aspect that I said, where it is too much about, oh my God, I'm too engrossed, like perfectionism comes naturally to us, right? And I keep checking myself, right? That we don't want to make any mistakes. We want to be just perfect. But in most of the cultures, they're not aiming towards perfectionism. They are aiming towards excellence. So they would share their vulnerabilities very easily, right? By saying, these are the challenges I'm facing. These are my constraints that I'm failing. And they would solution together. So people feel it's a dialogue. They relate to you in a much more different plane than we are thinking, okay, we are driving the outcome, so why do I have to tell them the entire journey? But it's very important to use storytelling, share your failures and best practices for people to relate that, you're part of the team, right? And creating your own leadership brand. So I would say these are the things, as all research on Asian leadership says, right? These are the areas that every Asian leader have to continue to work upon. And it's a journey that we have to excel, right? That people consider as global leaders and just not Asian leaders, right? So that's a learning that I had as I continue to, manage and service, global teams.
Okay, thank you, Papia, for the
Thank you,
answer.
Papia.
So Janet, from China HR perspective, do you want to add any comments?
I also very much inspired by Papia's sharing today, learned so much, and I think it's very authentic and from your own real experiences help us a lot. Just I think Papia mentioned one important fact is that we are very humble, and one thing is to realize that the first step is to self-aware. Be aware of what our thinking process, and secondly is to reflect. I think writing a diary or doing something would be on a regular basis would be really helpful. One thing to add maybe is to promote on IDP. So a way to sort out our process is to write it down, to know what is our strengths and where we can improve further, and have a regular conversation with your managers and with your peers, even with your direct reports. That way, we can think through how to fill those gaps and be rest assured under Jordan's leadership and Papia's support. HR team are fully your cheerleaders to provide all the resources and support we can to provide you. We have lots of programs. We'll be there for you. that's all I want to share. So back to you, Lani.
Yeah, Janet, I love your idea of the diary. Right now, we are learning how to tell stories, the storytelling, we are learning how to write stories to be the heroine in our stories.
I heard about that.
And
good for you.
Yeah, and thank you, Jordan, for bring us this program, the Mulan Academy, the storytelling camp. I think
Yes,
it's
this
time
is excellent.
for the last question. Time flies. We are having fun. So the last question.
Hi, Rachel. I want to ask a last question. Hi, Papia.
Is that Swally?
Hi,
Yeah,
I'm
shoot your
Swally
question.
I'm from Japan team, and I've seen a lot of the changes in Papia's career, both in terms of the location and the position. And Papia, you've said that there have been some tough decisions. So what was the most important factor you've considered in each decision you made? Or what's the principle you want to share with us? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me that question. I think the first thing that I ask myself, right, and is that whether it is a role that is helping me to challenge myself, right? That's the question that I asked myself. And then the second thing is that any decision that I made, I didn't. It worked out for me because I ensured that I spent time adequately discussing it with my family before I communicated the decision, so that it becomes a decision that I know that my family would support. And so it's not like I made the decision and then I communicated to them, by the way, this is the decision I'm making, because then you just figure out that you need a village of ecosystem, right? You can't do it all, right? You will need an ecosystem of your people that you would need. The other thing I had to do is a tough choice that I had to make is that because I have moved around so much, I've lost touch with many friends, right? Because I moved around cities, I moved around countries. So I've lost connections, right? And that's something that I feel that I've not done adequately to be able to build those connections, but I knew that I've lost them because of the kind of choices I've made in terms of making the move. So at times it would be scenarios that that was the toughest choice I've made, right? Of being able to have the comfort of extended friends and people that know you, right, in a comfort zone versus you starting out absolutely scratch new, right? And you have to be comfortable that you're experiencing it because of the choice you have made, and not feel guilty about it. Because the moment you start feeling guilty about it, you will regret your decision, right? So I've learned to accept that's the consequence of the choices I have made in my career moves, right? And you have to be okay with it, right? That it's a consequence of the choice. And if you have reconciled that in your head, it becomes much more easier. So I would say that's the toughest one that I had to deal with. Especially, I realized it when you are in a situation where traveling doesn't become easier, right? You have to be in a pandemic situation where everything is virtual. It became tougher to stay connected with extended family, right? And I had to make extra effort around it, right? So that's where I would say that sometimes decisions are hard. It's not easy, and you have to agree, and you have to reconcile with the fact that you cannot have it all. There are compromises you need to make because those are the choices you have made. And once you reconcile that, it helps you to be comfortable in the decisions you have made, actually.
Thank you, Papia.
Okay,
Fantastic.
thank you.
I can't believe we're already at the bottom of the hour. Papia, would you please say something to us as key takeaways?
Yes, thank you. I think I really enjoyed the session, and I think it's an excellent forum, right, to learn from each other's experience. I don't think any book can teach us, the way that you operate, rather than for learning from leaders' experiences. So you could, go back and reflect, right? I'm sure there are various instances that you reflected in your career as I was talking through my journey, and look back and see what you want to do differently. The only message that I leave is it is very important as women leaders to do two things, right? Help others rise. And the second thing is pay it forward, right? I'm doing my part of paying it forward because I know that, somebody invested in me and made me this confident to be in this forum today, right? And therefore I have to give it back, right? And pass on the baton, right? To be able to groom other team members. So I always look for opportunities that I can give it forward. It's a mission that I follow. And the second is at any time that people reach out and ask for just few moments of time of career advice, never say no to them, right? Because you never know how that one advice that you gave them would have made an important inflection point of a career change for them, right? So be open and be constructive in your feedback. You never know how you're impacting people's lives, right? So those are the two things that have helped me to be successful in my career. And I would like each of you, and it doesn't matter which level you belong to, paying it forward doesn't start at any level. It starts from every level. And being constructive in giving feedback and helping others rise starts from any level that you start, right? And that's what has helped me to be successful in my career.
Thank you, Papia. We will remember that, and I'm writing them down. And there will also be the recording for everyone to review from time to time. Thank you so much. Jordan, would you like to say something to us as well?
I think Papia said it so well, and I think she's just like a treasure. I feel we are so lucky to have her as a part of the forum presenter, and I think we should continuously do this. Every time I have a chance to interact with her, I got some new learning. Thank you for spending time with us, Papia.
Thank you. I just love this team, and I think our secret sauce is our ability to the ability to collaborate, right? And each of us never doubt each other's intentions, right? And that's where I think our secret sauce of success, being such a high performing team. So I can't have been better proud to be part of this team, and I look forward for seeing each of you outshining in your roles. And I know that you will continue to drive extraordinary outcome for our business. So thank you for everything that you do every day to make us so successful.
You made our day. Thank you. Thank you, Papia.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you,
I'll catch
Papia.
up soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Bye-bye.
You may scan the QR code and leave your comments. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.